Hockey season is officially upon us, which means SJHL Weekly has returned. Thank you so much for joining us across the SJHL social media platforms, sjhl.ca, as we get you ready for the 2023-2024 SJHL season. And a big thank you to our friends at UPL, who are the presenting sponsor for SJHL Weekly this year, along with all of our other great sponsors. Thank you so much for your support, because without your support, these shows would not be possible. And without further ado, we have to bring in our great co-hosts, Rory and Jamie. Fellas, how was your summer? It's good to be back.
Oh, it's awesome to be back, and I can't wait for this weekend where the regular season drops the puck and all the points matter, all the standings and the stats matter. The preseason's over, but the summer was great. And, you know, it kind of happens in three tiers. The playoffs end, and you're like, all right, I'm good to be away from a hockey rink for a little bit of time, right?
100%.
And then, you know, you have a great time with friends, with family, a great summer for, I'm sure, the coaches, the players. But then 3 weeks out, you're itching to get back. And then it's preseason and the excitement. And then the final 2 games of preseason, you're like, all right, let's get to the ones that count. And we're finally here. The show is back, and I'm super excited.
Yeah, and you guys know that Rory doesn't have kids yet, and so having kids, I was ready for the season pretty fast. I'm just kidding.
Just wanted to get out of the house.
Very happy to be back. We love doing this. It's a real honor to bring this league and all the news and notes from all 12 teams. We love all of them equally, and we can't wait to share it with you guys.
Hey, quick buy or sell question. Yeah. As we get older, the summer goes faster. Buy or sell?
Yeah, you could probably buy that.
I think you could buy that.
You got to enjoy whatever time you do get. So But yeah, it seems to go a little bit faster and faster.
I'm going to sell it. I'm just going to say the busier the summer, the more it goes faster.
All right, fair enough. I thought I'd put you on the spot. All right, we are going to run through all 12 teams in the Saskatchewan Junior Hockey League, break down the new acquisitions, player departures, and much, much more. So let's get right into it. And let's start with the Viterra division, and we'll start with the Melville Millionaires. Of course, it was well documented how tough of the season last year was for the Melville Millionaires. But now they have a familiar face at the helm to SJHL hockey fans. Doug Johnson is back in the SJHL. Fellas, what do you think of Melville going into this season? I think the turnover is an interesting storyline, I guess, for Melville to start this year.
Yeah, I'll take it quickly off the start, Nukes. And I mean, I think the biggest story about Melville is Doug Johnson.
Yes.
And what is he going to be able to do? We all remember his Nipawin Hawks teams, how they were so hard to play against, so hard to score against. They're always really structured, systems hammered home into the players. That's what I expect to see out of the Melville Millionaires. I don't expect there to be any easy games against them, but when you do look at a lineup, you are wondering if they have what it takes, to get over the hump and into the playoffs. Is it still going to be a building year? Is it still going to be, okay, the cupboards are half full. We got to stock them. Mm-hmm. We got to get the players ready for this season, but really looking forward to what we can make the Melville Millionaires be in a few years. Doug Johnson's huge. But if you look at their scoring leaders from last year, they don't have their top four. Mm-hmm. Their top five, actually. Their highest scoring leader returning is a defenseman in Colby Ball. I'm really interested to see what William Dyke, back into the SJHL, a huge 6'5" goaltender, can do with Doug Johnson's system. I think they're going to be hard to play against, but unless a lot of these players play in their second year, play in their third year, make a huge step up, like a Caden Jury, a Tucker Bouhay, a Zach Bansley. I don't know if that's enough to get them in a playoff race, but I think hiring Doug, getting a goaltender like Dyke, and really seeing what they can do is the first step in that.
Yeah, I agree with everything you said, Rory. Again, Doug Johnson teams always have goalies that put up big numbers, and so I expect William Dyke to put up a big year, and they are going to need it. I think Doug is doing a nice job recruiting. He's got kids that he believes will buy into the way that Doug Johnson wants the Mills to play. I saw them in the preseason. I saw Lucas Bydal, who came off of a dominant North Dakota high school hockey season. He can really play. He's excited about Brendan Olsen he got from Alberta U18. Felix Boschman is going to have to step up and put some pucks in the back of the net a little bit more, but he's got the talent. So we'll see. But as you said, Rory, Doug Johnson teams are more about the system, more about the collective than having stars. You're right. Melville will not be any fun for anybody to play against.
The one thing when you look at their roster, too, just quickly, is that there's not a lot of 20-year-olds.
No.
And I like a younger transition. We've seen that with teams in the past that they are still competitive.
Yes,
there's nothing wrong with that. And if you're building for next year, that's beautiful. But if you only have 3 20-year-olds and one's a goalie, it's just going to be tough on a night-to-night basis to go up against teams that have 8 of them, and that's just how it's been in the league for 10 years.
For sure. And when you have a younger team like that, to have that 20-year-old netminder, it
Well,
allows
it's
for
big.
some growing pains, for sure, when it comes to the Melville Millionaires.
And William Dyke was good in Humboldt, and then he went over to the OJHL and had a fantastic season. So I think that's a great bring-in by Doug Johnson and the Millionaires.
Yeah, he was 15-3-2 combined last year, William Dyke. 15 wins, a .917 save percentage between Drumheller and the AJ, but mostly with Trenton and Burlington and the OJHL, two very good teams as well. So he's going to come in and he's going to make Melville not an easy out.
For sure. All right, let's move up the highway to Yorkton. Kind of a similar situation when it comes to now a new face in charge, and Emery Olesen. And you have to feel for Emery a little bit coming in a week before training camp start. But I guess the difference between Yorkton and Melville is the fact that Yorkton has a good amount of returning pieces that Emery can definitely work with, Nugsy.
Yeah, and lots of returning guys. We have to mention Tate Schofer right off the top, acquired in a trade for his rights from Weyburn, sent down from the Moose Jaw Warriors, and he's going to make an impact right away. We saw how good Dylan Ruptash was. He can put the puck in the net. They believe in a huge, and I mean huge, decor. Tyson Perkins. You have Cutter Knight, who's a big kid. You have Knutson, who's a big kid. They got Logan Nemo and Dalton Mays, who are pretty big kids still back there too. So you talked about it. The cupboards are pretty full in Yorkton. These guys have to put it together, but obviously great organization, great community in Yorkton. Love that rink there at the Westland Arena. There's all the ingredients in Yorkton for them to be a pretty good team. Anybody that takes them lightly are going to be in for a long night.
Yeah, looking for a big step from the Yorkton Terriers because of their returning players. They're one of 3 SJHL teams that are returning their leading scorer in Dylan Ruptash. But then you go down that list, what they had, Clay Sleva, he's coming back. Brett Butts is coming back. Tyson Perkins, who I've loved on the blue line for the last 2 seasons, he's coming back. And as Newsy said, they're big. Yeah. They are a big team. Yeah. I'm going to watch in the first 2 weeks what they do with, controlling penalty troubles. They have had that in the past. Can they kind of play just over that line, just behind that line where they're not in the box the whole time? But Caleb Allen in net coming back. Yeah. They have a lot of returning players. I'm really looking for big things from the Yorkton Terriers. The one thing, if you want to kind of say on the opposite side of that, is basically everyone on their staff is new. Like their head coach is new, their assistant coach is new, their trainers new, their broadcasters new. So with all returning players, it is going to be a change for them under Emery Olafson, and that might take a little bit of time. But they're big, they're fast, they're mean, they have a lot of returning players, and I'm looking for a big swing, potentially jumping up into that 6 to 8 spot in the playoffs.
Yeah, I'd just be really curious how they balanced the goaltending situation last year. They worked really hard to try to find somebody to play behind Caleb Allen. They never really found that solution. They hope they have it in Blake Sittler, who got a little piece of the pie late in the year last year and did well. Caleb Allen played a lot last year, maybe too much for a young goaltender, and the results kind of went a little bit downhill on him as a result. But we have all seen how good Caleb Allen can be. He won his first 5 starts in a row last year for Yorkton, and so the capability is there.
And we'll see how Yorkton does in opening weekend, where they play a home and home against the next team we're going to talk about, the Weyburn Red Wings. Big year for Weyburn last year, getting back into the postseason. A good year for this, rebuild for Cody Mapes and company and the organization. Now it's an interesting year this year for Weyburn, just because they lost some big pieces up front.
Yeah, most of their definitely their top 2 players up front, Riley Morgan and Ty Mason, both gone. Morgan graduated, Mason to the USHL. Congratulations for him. That's a great step. Weyburn is the team in the gray for me. Yeah. They could, completely not bring in the start how they finished the year just based off of not having those high-powered players. But with Cody Mapes and the guys that he brought in, they could be one of the top teams early. I just don't know enough. I know they have Dazza Mitchell. I know he's going to be a front runner. What he did to Estevan in that shutout in the preseason. We know it's going to be tough to beat Dazza Mitchell, but then you just kind of look. Jerome Maharaj out of the Sherwood Park in the AJHL. I think that was a beautiful pickup. And I was watching the preseason game, and he scored a shootout goal with a Datsukian move.
Yeah, so it was very nice.
He's got handfuls of skill. So he's going to have to pair with guys like Carter Briltz, Max Manette. I expect a big year out of him. Rhett Vidris, another older on the former number 1 pick in the SJHL. Brad Benash out of the OJHL has had a great preseason so far. So I think they have pieces. It's just with the loss of Riley Morgan and Ty Mason, who controlled, 70% of their offense last year, they're going to need it replicated from somewhere. So I could really see Weyburn going anyway. I'm very interested to see what they turn out to be in the opening weeks.
Well, here's the stat for you then, Rory. The top 4 players, so Ty Mason, Riley Morgan, Jacob Kalin, and Jackson Hassman, scored 96 goals of the 181 that Weyburn scored, so 53% of their goals gone. Now, Cody Mapes, and you guys know, Cody Mapes loves to make a trade. Yep. He's been very aggressive already. You talked about Banak from the Milton Menace there in the OJHL. He brought in Ruthven. He looks really, really good. They got Tyler Teasdale, the very, very talented 20-year-old defenseman from Blackfalds, as part of a deal that sent Ty Mason's rights out to Blackfalds, which was a very tidy piece of business by Cody Mapes to get something for Ty Mason, who's obviously departed. And then you talked about Maharaj. So there are pieces here in Weyburn, and from what I saw in the preseason, and I saw them play a game in Crescent Point Place, they did well against Estevan. They seem like they've bought into what Cody Mapes is preaching very, very quickly. They're very excited. They're very excited about Riley Cisa, who's the younger brother of Logan Cisa, who is, of course, the captain of the Yorkton Terriers. Should be very interesting to see how they gel. Be very interesting again. The biggest issue with Weyburn last year was, could they play the same away from the Crescent Point Place as they did at Crescent Point Place? They had a very hard time. They were dominant at home. They struggled a lot on the road. Can they find that? But Teasdale and Nick Kovacs together at the top of the D-core, and Dazza Mitchell, who looks like a real man on a mission. His numbers in the preseason were ridiculous. Absolutely ridiculous. So Dazza looks great. Hey, again, you take Weyburn lately, you're in for a long night.
What you can't undervalue also is the experience that they learned for the returning players to fight into that 8th spot. They were in a dogfight for the last month of the season. They won the first game against Battlefords, who never lost again in the playoffs.
That's true.
That is valuable experience for some returning players, Dazza Mitchell being one of them. That's what it takes through 56 games. And that was a great battle to get that last spot for the Weyburn Red Wings. So we'll see how they can build on that.
And of course, that experience to play against, obviously, the Battlefords North Stars, who were obviously one of the top teams in the country last year. All right, let's wrap up the Viterra division with the Estevan Bruins. Of course, they won the Viterra division last year, despite coming off, obviously, the Centennial, hosting the Centennial Cup. It appeared to be a little bit of a retweaking year last year for the Estevan Bruins, but boy, oh boy, they have a lot of good returning players this year, and they're going to be right back near the top of the standings. It's shaping up to be.
Great way to put it. They're in my upper echelon of the SJHL prior to the regular season starting, and they're there with one other team. We'll get to that later on. But Estevan is the top 1 or 2 teams, in my opinion. You look at returning guys. You look at, Olin Barrow, Ilya Chmielewski. You got Tim Tyconic, Sal Kalara, Gabriel Filion, who looks unbelievable in preseason.
Very good.
Keegan Little, their captain, Garrett Ziziko. And that's just forwards. Not to mention all the major junior players that they brought in to pair up with them. And of course, the one guy I'm leaving out is potentially the front runner for goaltender of the year is Cam Herdlicka. So I don't really see a weakness in this Estevan Bruins team again this year, similar to what they had 2 years ago as a part of their championship winning team. They're in my upper echelon this year. That's all I can say.
The thing about them is Jason Tatarnic, first of all, I think he said to you, Jeremy, that he felt like he didn't have as much time as maybe he had hoped after the Centennial Cup year to recruit and to get the right people in. He had lots of time this year. Boy, oh boy, are they good. He built from the back end out. Blake Heward, longtime Western Hockey League guy, obviously Regina Manor Hockey. Everybody knows Blake Heward, his dad, Jamie in the NHL, of course. Felix Allard, maybe a defenseman of the year candidate too. Boy, is he good. Former Rwanda Husky in the QMJHL. You go down the list, and I'm really excited. I love the young guys. I love when young guys get opportunity. Michael Gallant, 06 birth year from BC. He was at Moose Jaw Warriors camp with his brother Matthew up there with the Moose Jaw Warriors, and again, didn't look out of place at all. He looks electric. You go up and down the wrist, Rory. There is no holes in this Estevan Bruins team. They're mean. Now, the thing that I wonder is, where will Jason Tatarnic add in terms of a little bit more dynamic offense? Obviously, the Centennial Cup year, they had Mark Rumsey, they had Olivier Pouliot, et cetera, et cetera. They've got a lot of good pieces. They're very deep. They're maybe deeper than the Centennial Cup team. But they don't necessarily have that very, very, very top of the offense right now, though, Jason Tatarnic, I'm sure he's got lots of irons in the fire.
For sure. Time will tell. Do you want to make predictions on who you feel like is going to win the division?
Sure. I just think based off of how we've evaluated the 4 teams, I think it's quite understandable that we're probably both going to pick Estevan to win the Viterra division. I do think that there's going to be another dogfight between Yorkton and Weyburn. Melville, I think they're rebuilding. Like we said, they're not going to be an easy out, but I see a little more from the other 3 teams, if I'm being blatantly honest.
Nugsy? Same?
Yeah, it'd be crazy to... I think right now Estevan has the best roster on paper coming into the season, so I can't say otherwise.
Fair enough. We'll move on to the newly dubbed, I know both of you guys are very excited for this.
Absolutely.
The Nutrien division.
There you go.
Featuring obviously both teams that you guys work for. Let's start with the Kindersley Clippers. We talked about already 2 of the teams that have no new coaches, and the Kindersley Clippers have a new man, a new bench boss this year, but a familiar one in Clayton Jardine coming in. Of course, he started his coaching career with the Kindersley Clippers in 2015, 2016 as an assistant coach, brief stint as head coach, and he comes into the Kindersley Clippers this year, kind of similar to Yorkton. A lot of good returning pieces for Kindersley.
I love the Clippers. a lot
There's
to
a
do.
lot to like.
There's a lot to like. The local connections one, bringing in the Perlingers, who we saw a little spice of last year, but as rookies in AAA, led their Swift Current Legionnaires team in points. 1-2 were Cam and Kobe. Now they're ready to make that jump. I saw them in the preseason. They're not out of place.
Yeah.
They are ready to go at 2007 birth years. You got Hilbig coming back, Tylen and Ethan up front and on defense respectively. You got Logan Linklater, who has a chance to lead the league in scoring. He sometimes battles injuries, but he's always over a point per game. Logan Cox and Danton Cox. I think they have 3 sets of brothers now.
Yeah.
They have 3 sets of brothers. So there's local connections, there's family connections, and I'm going to say it now. It is going to end the 5-year drought of being out of the playoffs. Kindersley's in this year. I love the Clippers.
Yeah, very familiar. Obviously, Clayton Jardine with the league too, so nothing's going to take him by surprise as he's come in to the Clippers organization. And here's a word that was just used to describe the Perlingers that'll excite you, Mr. Jeromy Corrigan. Clayton Jardine. I spoke to him about the Perlingers. I said, "Are they different? What's the difference between them?" He said, "The typical thing you want to hear about twins." He said, "They remind me of the Sedins."
Love that.
And Jeremy's obviously a big Canucks guy, so he loved that. So they find each other. They know where each other are. They got that sort of twin sense. 07 birth years, they were really good for Team Saskatchewan at the Canada Winter Games as well last year. And big guy that they added that Clayton Jardine's really excited about is Zachary Anderson from the Victoria Grizzlies of the BCHL. He's a very, very accurate shooter. He's got a good knack around the net. I expect him to, at very minimum, be in the 20s for the goals, and goals was the issue for Kindersley last year. I expect them not to have the same problems this year.
And the fact that you can also return both goaltenders too, that's just another boost. So lots to be excited in West Central Saskatchewan this year when it comes to the Kindersley Clippers. Moving on, Notre Dame Hounds. Nugsy, I'll let you start this one for the Hounds. I mean, you just wrapped up the preseason over the weekend. What do you make of the Hounds this year?
Yeah, I mean, just kind of like Jason Tatarnic in terms of the direction that he wanted to go. Brett Pilkington wanted to go, building his goaltending, building his back end first, and try to figure out offense second. And in Jesse Pye and in Johan Trombley-Cal, the Hounds feel like they have a legit elite goaltending tandem in the SJHL right now. You know what? They are going to miss Jared Sitch and Sam Kroon. Those minutes on the back end are hard to replace, but they feel like they're in good hands with the likes of Liam Hunks, the good hands at the likes of Vinny Palmerine, who will come back soon, we hope, from an illness. And also Carter Hines is a very exciting 06 birth here on the back end. Again, offense, where's it going to come from? Those are the question marks. They brought in Alexander Hollins from the NCDC. He looks phenomenal in the preseason. They're going to get some offense, they hope, from the D-core. But I think from top to bottom, and I was saying this before the show started, I thought this was a more solid, deeper Notre Dame team. Didn't have the Kevin Andersons or the Jared Sitches at the top, but you have Carson Bayless. You have a lot of guys who are back as well. We talk about a lot of returnees, Davis Sato, Cypress Smith Davis, Cal Calamaris. These guys need to take big steps forward to find offense for Notre Dame. And if they can't, then it'll be another playoff-less year for Notre Dame. And if those guys can take the step forward and help contribute offensively with Carson Bayless and Alexander Hollins, then I think this Notre Dame team, again, has a good shot.
So where, I guess, to follow up, what's do you think's the ceiling for this hockey club?
Yeah, I mean, I think everything that was said around training camp is playoffs. Like, whether it's 6, whether it's 7, whether it's 8, like, I don't know, but I think this team has a lot more experience than a lot of Notre Dame teams have had. They have 6 20-year-olds they're expecting on day one. I don't remember the last time the Hounds Junior had 6 20-year-olds.
Neither do I.
Not many people do. It's usually 2 or 3. Last year it was 2 with St. Ange and Kroon, and that was it. So, experience in a lot of different areas. Guys got to step up. Guys got to take that next step and become, legitimate junior A talented players, especially up front. But they came into shape into camp. Good team chemistry so far. I'm excited to see what it'll look like on Saturday.
All right. Well, Jamie took the Hounds. Unless Rory has anything you want to talk about?
No, I mean, that was perfectly said. The one thing I noticed is that there's no Kevin Anderson, there's no Will Dawson. So what he said is those other guys, they got to step up. If they can, they're going to be again flirting with that playoff line and hopefully getting in. But they're just, I think they're going to be more of a, grind you down in your face, trying to get in front of the net, making havoc. And because they don't have those top scorers, it's going to be a collective team that needs to provide offense. And as Jamie said, if they can do that, all their hopes are on the playoffs.
For sure. Because Jamie took the Hounds, we'll obviously give you the Humboldt Broncos. Obviously, it's a pretty successful year last year, finishing second in the Saskatchewan Junior Hockey League standings. And while the Broncos lost a good amount of players, whether it be to graduation or moving on, they still have a good core returning.
Yeah, a good core of the ones that are returning, but not a lot, as it's only 7 players, including a goaltender. So there's 3 forwards returning, there's 3 defensemen returning, and then their goalie, which in the first time in I think 5 or 6 years they actually have a returning goalie.
Yeah.
They haven't had that in a very long time. You got to expect big things from Cage Newens. Matthew Van Blericom and Connor Miller should be taking the league by storm in Van Blericom's second year. In Miller's first full, he played 5 games last year, but he'll still be a rookie. You look at the pieces they lost, though, and I do think this Humboldt team is going to have some hiccups along the road. They lost all 4 centermen, which is, super impossible to replace. Doesn't happen often that everyone down the middle is new. No. So Zilke, Ceccarelli, Marburg, Kasperi, the 5 and 6 that were shifted in, they're all gone. You lost Noah Barloggi and Karsten Cater on the point to the USHL and the BCHL, Tim Kim to the BCHL. So it's a brand new Humboldt Broncos teams, but their leadership group coming in and the guys that are going to take the reign as 20-year-olds, a Cage Newens, a Dalen Weigel, a young Matthew Van Blericom, I think there's, they're in the upper half of teams that have those star-studded returners. So I do think Humboldt is loaded. I think they're deep, but I do think there's going to be a little bit of times where you're like, whoa, what happened there? It's just because there's just so many new faces, and especially down the middle. Yeah.
Again, one of the things that I really respect about Scott Barney is that he doesn't care how old you are. Mm-hmm. He does not 100%. Care. Like if you are 05, 06, 07 even, and you are better than a 20-year-old, he will play you in a power play spot or whatever. So Matthew Van Blericom and Connor Miller, I expect them to get big opportunity. It doesn't matter that they're young. I love Connor Miller. I've loved him for years. Great Moose Jaw Warriors, young player, committed to D1 already, to Augustana. Played in the playoffs for the Humboldt Broncos last year even. So that's what Scott Barney thinks of him. He trusts these young guys, and Scott Barney's coaching style is exactly what we need from now and moving forward here in the SJHL. The Broncos will be fun to watch. I don't necessarily agree that there will be it's never perfect for anybody, really, unless you're the Battlefords last year. But I expect them to not miss too much of a beat just because there is such a core of guys that really understand. And obviously that starts with Motu and net being solid. He needs to be what you guys believe, or the Broncos believe him to be. And you have Dalen Weigel, at the back end to solidify that. So, there's enough for Humboldt to have a good start. And I'm sure Scott Barney will keep his eyes open because, it's his way or the highway in Humboldt. He coaches it well. But the Broncos have a standard that they've set, and I think they're not going to miss too much of a beat.
For sure. Let's quickly get to the final team in the Nutrien division before we head to break. Let's talk about the defending SJHL champions, the Battlefords North Stars. Obviously, you guys just mentioned it. It was an incredible year last year for Battlefords, going 12-1 in the playoffs. Nugsy lost a piece of paper, but I'll tell you what, last year the Battlefords North Stars didn't miss a beat throughout the entire campaign. But this is similar to Humboldt. There's going to be a lot of fresh faces in North Battleford at the Civic Center this year, but it's going to be a good opportunity for those returning players and a lot of these new faces to have new opportunities to potentially, be put in roles that they might not be used to.
Yeah, if the Wayward Red Wings thought that they were missing some weapons from their roster, sure. Battlefords lost 152 goals.
Yeah, that's a few.
From Kean Bell, Holden Dole, Jake Southgate, and Steve Kesslering. You throw in the point per game or Tynan Ewart. It's not important. It's not about who's gone. It's about who is here. And obviously that does start in net. One guy that really has stuck out in the preseason for Battlefords is Joey Hocko, who it looks like they may give a good opportunity to. He's not a big guy, but he played in a really, really good U18 program in Nova Scotia. Dauphiné Cyr, I believe, is the other goaltender, has some QMJHL experience too. So, they'll be solid in net. You look at it, you talked about the 3 guys back for Humboldt on the back end. This Battlefords team does have champions on the back end. Alex Isaac was phenomenal in the Centennial Cup.
He was.
Jeremy, you watched every minute.
Yeah.
Alex Isaac took another huge step forward. Tanner Gold, captain of this team. Again, he's a huge piece for them. Easton Rask is going to get a more regular role. So again, they have a culture. They have a standard that's set. I talked to Braden Klamosko a little bit. And it was interesting because I think his standard for his club is so high the last number of years that because it's going to be a work in progress, I think he was a little bit like, oh, this is different. But, it'll be interesting to see what Battlefords has.
Right.
Yeah, you have to go down to 7th on their scoring leaders to get a guy that's returning. But it was just how incredible they were. So they lost a lot of top-end talent. But we've seen Battlefords turn it over before, and a lot of their bulk guys, a lot of their glue guys that, hey, they're SJHL champions, and they were the second best team in Canada last year. So you don't think that they're going to step up and have a good year? I mean, I'm talking guys, Bradley Blake, Riley Giroux, Jackson Allen, Jordan Grill, Tanner Gold, Easton Rask, Alex Isaac on the point. They have like 12 returning players from their championship team. It's not their Steve Kesslerin's and Holden Doles, but there is a lot of good bulk there that you can bring in, a Braden Sinclair, who was like 3rd in the league in points in Junior B over in BC there. You got Leighton McLean, who had 93 points in 39 games or something over in the EOJHL, so Junior B in Ontario, right? A lot of interesting guys that are going to come in and get experience from, 11 or 12 guys that were the second best team in the nation. So I'm not saying Battlefords is going to have a step back. They have those guys that really can lead. They're missing the high-end punch.
Sure.
100% they are. It's going to be tough to replicate whatever he said, 190, 200 plus points or 300 plus, whatever it was from those.
That's what it's going to feel like.
Yeah, for sure. It's going to be tough. But, I mean, I do like that they have a good group of guys who have the experience of finishing second place in Canada.
Yeah, it's interesting. Again, I wondered, I mentioned it earlier. Jason Tatarnic said, I didn't have a lot of time to recruit. That was a work in progress for Estevan last year. Battlefords, how much time did they have to recruit? Probably not a ton.
Yep.
Sure.
So, I'm sure people were calling because they just keep having success. Braden Klamosko, Garrett Schilderhose keep doing a great job. But again, I think it'll be a work in progress. And then my last point is, I had a pretty interesting conversation with Gary Childerhose in the offseason. I said, do you even consider putting Jordan Grill back on the D? And he said, essentially, he's like, are you crazy? Like, he was amazing.
He was very good.
He was so good as a forward. Yeah. So Jordan Grill's not going to touch the D. He's going to be a big-time top 6 forward for Battlefords this year, and he was awesome in the finals, so why not?
All right, quickly, before we go to break, predictions on the newly dubbed Nutrien division.
I have this one a lot closer than maybe many other people do between the 3 teams. Sure. Between Battlefords, Humboldt, Kindersley, I think maybe 7 to 8 points separate all 3 teams. Wow. I'll say Humboldt pops out on top, but I think it's going to be close between those 3 teams.
Yeah, I just think Humboldt, then their top end is right now higher than the top end of the other 3 teams in the Nutrien. So I'm going to stick with Humboldt Broncos. I also really like Motu. I think, people don't know how good he is. I think he's going to be really good for them.
934 save percentage in the playoffs.
Yeah, really good.
All right, well, after the break, we will be pleased to be joined by SJHL Commissioner Kyle McIntyre. And then later on in the show, of course, we will preview the Sherwood division and much, much more. This is SJHL Weekly across the SJHL social media platforms.
And now down to Bruce Buck.
It's time for Rugmania at Capital GMC. Get rates as low as 0.99% and savings up to $8,000 on a new GMC Sierra. Plus used trucks with low rates and no payments for 90 days. It's Rugmania at Capital GMC in Regina.
As a student, things can pile up fast. Ouch. But the RBC Student Banking Bundle makes back to school easier with up to $275 in value. That's a whole pile of takeout.
Today, online bullying is more common than ever, but there is help. SaskTel wants to solve this problem. It's why they created Be Kind Online. If you're a victim of online bullying or know someone who is, or even if you just want to stop it from happening to anyone, this is a place to learn what you can do. You can find lots of tools and tips to help you stand up to cyberbullying. Be Kind Online is a place to learn how to stay safe as well, to learn best practices and plans to stop cyberbullying before it even has a chance.
Original 16. Celebrate things done well.
Sask Energy Network members are the best choice for natural gas solutions for your home or business. With comprehensive services like heating equipment maintenance, appliance installation, and in-store financing, they have natural gas solutions that go beyond heating to bring you the comfort, efficiency, and reliability of natural gas, both indoors and outdoors, all year long. For whole home natural gas solutions, network members burn brighter.
Welcome back to SJHL Weekly across the SJHL social media platforms. It's Jamie, Rory, and Jeromy. Thanks so much for joining us on this season preview episode of SJHL Weekly presented by UPL. Big thank you to UPL as our presenting sponsor this year for SJHL Weekly, as well as SJHL Insider. A big thank you to UPL and, of course, all of our great sponsors across the SJHL. But we're going to go to the video chat line now, where we're pleased to be joined by the boss man himself, Mr. Kyle McIntyre, the commissioner of the Saskatchewan Junior Hockey League. Kyle, I thought you were going to be on the golf course, to be honest with you, but how are you doing?
I'm doing great, but my golf game is not so great, Jeromy. So I'm in the office doing some work today and getting ready for our opening face-offs here on the weekend.
Well, that kind of leads into my first question. I saw you were at the Flin Flon Bombers golf tournament on Friday. I wanted to ask how it went, and more importantly, I want to know how good Rob Hart's golf game is.
I will tell you what, I had the opportunity to play with four legends, and so Rob Hart was, of course, donning his Expo pullover, which was nostalgic for all of us involved. But Rob Hart, opening drive at the Phantom Golf Club in Flin Flon, he absolutely bisected the fairway, and none of us even hit our drivers. Rob Hart and it was kind of his hole. It was an elevated green, and he had a heck of a chip, and we dropped our first birdie. And then Mike Reagan informed me that he said that, hey, the coaches and the commissioner, you guys cannot win this tournament, so we're just playing for fun. But certainly was an excellent event. Mike and Cole McQuaig did a great job, and Travis Rideout, the president of the Broncos, number of the Bronco board members, all the players, number of fans and sponsors, and really enjoy getting to those events. A good way to mix with a cross-section of people that are passionate about the Bombers and passionate about the SJHL.
I think everyone just really wanted to know about Rob Hart's golf game. When I saw the photo, I was really curious.
What else do we need to talk to him about?
He's actually a good player, you guys. So I was pretty impressed, and didn't know what I was going to get when I was teamed up with Hardy. But he's a good player. He knows his way around the Flin Flon course for sure.
Kyle, again, thank you as always for joining us here on the show. My first question, I'm going to get right into the weeds here with you, Kyle. The SJ Showcase in Warman every year, it seems, for the last while has been in September. It's moved to November this year. Maybe you could tell us and the people why that decision was made.
Right. So certainly I can tell you that. So in September, early in the year, as you know, rosters really fluctuate. And I would say on average, probably rosters probably had about a 40 to 45% turnover by the time our season really got up and running. And so certainly I want to maximize the number of scouts. Last year we had over 25 NHL scouts. We had a number of NCAA Division I and a number of NCAA Division III scouts, probably 75 scouts in total. I want to maximize that number because I know the number of talented players that we have in rosters this year, and you guys were hitting a number of them before I came on, and certainly I want to maximize the exposure of the league, especially for our players. And so going in that November 13th to 16th, it is a break in the NCAA calendar. It's not a blackout period, so I'm hoping that we're going to have reams of NCAA Division I scouts, a number of ACAC scouts, and a number of U Sport scouts in attendance, because certainly, as you remember, our commitments from last year, we probably had a record number of players commit to the various levels of post-secondary hockey, and that's certainly why we're all here. We're all here for the players, and certainly I want to maximize the exposure for the players, and that's why we moved it to a later date.
I just want to talk to you about kind of the new coaches that have come in this year. Of course, you have Emery Olafson in Yorkton, you have Clayton Jardine in Kindersley, and Doug Johnson in Melville. 3 teams that missed the playoffs, but 3 teams that, are trying to get back in for their fan bases, increase commitments, as you mentioned. What have you heard from the new coaches in sort of their beliefs that these teams are on the rise and, are going to be competitive starting this season?
Well, I'll tell you what, the appointment of all 3 of those gentlemen make all those teams automatically more competitive than they were last year. I mean, Doug Johnson, of course, has won the SJHL Coach of the Year a number of times, and Clayton Jardine, of course, was in Kindersley before and has a stellar record of putting guys into post-secondary opportunities from his days in Camrose. And then Emery Olafson, I don't know as well. I know he was a assistant coach in Flin Flon probably 9 years ago. He did some work at Minot State and was in the KIJHL. But all 3 guys I've had lots to do with over the summer after their appointments. I've had lots of conversations with them. I know that all 3 of them are extremely committed to icing a more competitive team than what they had last year. And again, you know what? The SJHL is known for its parity amongst its teams. And certainly that makes all 3 of those franchises automatically more competitive with those appointment of those coaches.
Kyle, I'll ask you this. Last year was your first full year in the Saskatchewan Junior Hockey League as commissioner. There was a lot of successes last year for obviously yourself as commissioner, but the league as a whole. So I guess my question to you is, how do you build off that after having such a strong first year?
Well, you know what, Jeremy, it takes a village to make a league successful, as you would know, but certainly we had a great year last year, and I can attribute a lot of that to yourselves and Nugsy and Rory and the Jacob Faith, and to our chairman of our board, Kyle Adamson, and the rest of our governors. And certainly we did some great things, but we're not done. My goal, as always, is to make the SJHL Canada's premier junior A hockey league. So there's still lots of stuff I want to work on. And as you know, delighters become expectations. So we've kind of set that bar. And I think if you're not growing, you should get going. And so certainly I want to improve on all those great things that we did last year and have even a better season this year.
Yeah, Kyle, I got to ask you, I know it's a topic that is hotly debated and continues to be hotly debated, but this year the league, as well as the CJHL, implementing the mandatory face masks or bubbles for 05s and younger. Maybe you could take us through, I guess the reasoning for that, and I guess how you feel that's going to impact the game.
Well, you know what, Nugsy, again, this was not an SJHL rule, but we, of course, are members of the Canadian Junior Hockey League, and we're strong members of Hockey Saskatchewan and Hockey Canada, and certainly it was a Hockey Canada decision. It's all about mitigating or limiting risk to participants, and so certainly I enjoy having our players compete in national championships. I enjoy having our players have the opportunity to participate in high caliber Hockey Canada sanctioned events, and I enjoy having the quality officials that we have. So certainly, although myself personally, I have mixed feelings about it, it was certainly something that we wanted to comply with. And you know what, if I wear my player's hat, certainly as a player, a number of our players look forward to coming and playing junior A hockey or playing in the CHL and having the opportunity to wear a half visor. If I put on my parent's hat, certainly if you had a parent that had a dental injury and you're looking at a bill of $20,000 to $25,000 for remediation, you might have a kind of a different perspective. If I put on my coach's hat, I think that coaches are worried about players in the full face masks with high sticks and head contact, and certainly our director of player safety and standard of play, Brad Howard, and I have had lots of conversations with one another and lots of conversations with our officials, and we're going to call that tightly, right? Some teams in the CJHL, like if you look at the Brooks Bandits, every single one of their players is wearing a full face mask. So I'm not sure whether the graduated implementation was the best strategy going into this, but it's certainly going to be something that we monitor throughout the year. And my hope is that our standard of play continues to be high and full of skill, and hopefully we have fewer concussions or injuries or head contact penalties. But certainly we'll monitor that data, and certainly we'll share that with the powers that be. And hopefully common sense will prevail when we evaluate whether it's been a successful implementation across the CJHL or not.
You know, before that, when you talked about the parity of the SJHL, which we've seen in amples for the past, handful of years at least. When you look into this year, though, I'm looking down rosters, I'm watching games in preseason. It might be speculative, but do you believe that it's even going to be closer, like from 12 to 1 than we've seen in years past in terms of the parity? I can't count out any team right now just about things they brought in, things they've changed. I think we're looking at one of the most parity-filled and competitive 12 teams that we've seen in a long time.
You know what? I don't want to sound repetitive, and I mean that certainly is the theme that I've seen over time. But of course, I went to a few exhibition games and I watched a number of them on Hockey TV or Flow Hockey. Sorry, and certainly, Rory, I would totally concur with that. Like, you add some new coaches, you add some new players. Some of the rosters turn over, and some of the young guns are going to step up, and then some of the young folks that are going to be playing with some teams. I certainly don't think any team is going to be worse. So again, it's going to be extremely competitive. Is there one team that's going to run away with it like the North Stars last year? Geez, I don't know. I went up to Flin Flon and they got probably one of the best lines in junior hockey. But then I watched the Broncos and I watched some of their young guys, Matthew Van Blaircom and some of those folks and some of the new D-men that they have, like with Ryder Knutson and the Thui kid and it's like, wow. And then I see what Weyburn's done. Like, I watched this Maharaj kid in this shootout goal the other night. It's like, holy mackerel, like, look at the skill out there. And so what I will predict is that, we're going to have some strong teams, but I think that we're going to have lots of parity from 1 to 12. And you're going to see a whole new generation of skilled players come into the league. And so certainly I encourage people to go out and watch the games. Like the people I met with over the summer, whether it was sponsors or whether it was fans or whether it's people I knew in hockey, everyone was incredibly pleased with the season. That was the 2022-2023 season. And all of them are looking forward to seeing this season. And I think it's going to be even better. And I think it's going to be a tough out. It's going to be tough for a team to dominate. I think any team can win on any given night, and I'm not writing anybody off.
Mm-hmm. All right, Kyle, before we get to Rory's rapid fire, we actually have a couple of questions on
Rory's rapid fire. No one said I was going to do this.
Not yet. Which, by the way, we're still looking for a sponsor. If anybody wants to sponsor Rory's rapid fire, reach out to Jacob Faith, Director of Marketing, Saskatchewan Junior Hockey League. We got some comments on the Facebook page. Let's start with Craig. Question for the commish. What's one rivalry you most look forward to seeing go head-to-head this season?
Oh, wow. You know what? When I think of playoffs last year and I think of playoffs 2 years ago, league final, I think of Flin Flon and Estevan. And certainly the arms race that seems to be going on in that area, and also the arms race that seems to be going on the corridor of Highway 39. Weyburn and Estevan, man, that just every day that gets ratcheted up even higher. And behind the scenes, certainly I've been part of some of those conversations. And so Flin Flon, Estevan, Weyburn, I think we're going to see a good rivalry on Friday as well. North Battleford and Kindersley. I think Kindersley, again, with Clayton Jardine and the Perlinger twins becomes way more competitive. And Battleford, although they got some key guys returning, they're looking for some goals. They're probably going to be down 120 goals, right? So I think that's going to be a great rivalry as well. And so, again, I just look forward to the puck dropping. And even in the North, like, I went to watch Larange this weekend and Nipawin, and man, both those teams, that was a heck of a game on Saturday night in the Mel. And I know that Trevor Blevins, he's certainly, he's got James Venn back and he's got Zach Summers back. And man, there's no easy out. Every rivalry is going to be alive and well, and of course it's going to be fun hockey to watch.
All right, Rory's rapid fire is back for the first time of the season with the Mish. All right, let's start at the golf tournaments. You were at a bunch of them. You know, it's great to see all the teams have their fundraising golf tournament. You probably saw a lot of the coaches golf. Who was the best coach, and who was the one that you wouldn't want on your two-man scramble?
Well, I'll tell you what, I didn't really, the only coach I got to play with was Mike Reagan. And Mike admittedly doesn't play a lot of golf, but he's a left-handed guy and he's a good athlete. He's pretty consistent. Probably one of the best, most consistent guys I played with was Tim Klamosko. And so Jeromy and I were paired with him at the North Battleford 50th anniversary tournament. And Tim is not only a great guy, but a great golfer, extremely, very, very consistent for sure. But I know that Blevins, he was a former golf pro, and so he's a good golfer. I've played with Tartanic last year, and Jason is one heck of a golfer as well. And there's probably nobody in the SJHL coaching fraternity that hits a ball as far as Braden Klamosko. So I would say a lot of our coaches enjoy the off season. A lot of them are excellent players, and they certainly put me to shame whenever I play with them.
You've been around the league. You've been around all the buildings all last season. I know you're gonna log a lot of miles this year as well. What's the best rink burger?
Melville, hands
Melville's
down.
got the best rink burger.
They got the best burger. I've had burgers in every rink, and I really enjoy the Melville burger. Like, it's awesome. Those ladies at that concession do an excellent job. Really good. No, hands down, not even an argument.
You weren't a stranger of the PIMs, the penalty minutes, and the sin bin in your playing career. Which penalty box did you spend the most time in?
The Alger Peterson.
Do you got a guy maybe that you would routinely butt heads with throughout that a couple seasons there?
There was lots of them. I mean, back in that era of hockey, there was a lot of real tough customers, and certainly you didn't want to give anyone an inch. Kelly Chase was a guy that was in Humboldt. We crossed paths lots of times. Probably the Lees twins from Melville, I probably went a few times behind the net, and there was lots of guys. Mike Polonchuk, who was also a teammate of mine. He was a giant back in the day, 6'5", 240. So we always played hard against each other, but you know what? The rivalries that you had when you played and the people you locked horns with when you met them off the ice, they were wonderful friends and people you really got along with that you wished were your teammate, right? So I mean, that's a great thing about hockey. You play hard between the whistles, play hard in the glass, and when you go out after the game, you could be colleagues or friends with one another.
All right, Commish. Well, we appreciate your time as always. You're always available to come on the show, interviews. We appreciate it. And enjoy the start of the season on Friday.
Absolutely. Guys, I appreciate your work. I look forward to watching every Monday and on Thursdays. And certainly thank you very much for your positive ambassadorship for your franchises and for the SJHL.
All right, that is Commissioner Kyle McIntyre ahead of a very exciting 2023-2024 SJHL season. After the break, we will preview the Sherwood division, and we will also get to some predictions when it comes to some year-end awards. This is SJHL Weekly across the SJHL social media platforms.
The Chevrolet Silverado 1500. Advanced power and capability to tackle the long hauls. Style to make a statement on the streets. Visit ChevroletOffers.ca to learn more.
Increase your home comfort with high-efficiency natural gas equipment. Sask Energy offers rebates so you can lower your energy use and save money. For a list of rebates, contact a participating network member or visit saskenergy.com.
When you buy a lottery ticket in Saskatchewan, your money really goes a long way. More than 12,000 sport, culture, and recreation groups receive funding from Sask Lotteries every year. Everyone wins.
Thanks for helping me out and trying to protect me today. It's the kind of thing that, somebody comes out who's not ready, not prepared, and put into an awkward situation without somebody taking leadership and saying, hey, I'm going to protect you. It's going to shorten people's careers. And that's a big reason why we exist and, what drives us to do what we do.
They know how important their role is in the community, being a good leader, showing kids that there is a right and a wrong way to do things and leading the right way. being a positive role model to not just kids in the community, but anybody in the community.
Coach said a lot of great things that are really consistent with the values that we have at the SCSA, and respect for those around us, respect for those that we work side by side with, leadership, and part of that is being innovative and collaborative and solving problems together. Really, the last one that you touched on was integrity, doing what's right and doing it the right way, and those things just yield incredible results, not just in terms of making things safe, but really being productive and striving, whether it be in a game or in your life or in your business.
I think absolutely we try and fill the roles of all those values and just try to be the best people we can, really, not only for ourselves but for our teammates and for the community around us.
Have a lot of fun today. Thanks, guys.
You're very welcome.
Thank you.
Original 16. Celebrate things done well.
Welcome back, SJHL Weekly across the SJHL social media platforms. It's Jamie, Rory, and Jeromy. Thanks so much for joining us on our season preview episode of SJHL Weekly, and of course, presented by our good friends at UPL, who are the presenting sponsor for SJHL Weekly and SJHL Insider this season. And as you can see on the 3-shot, we brought in the Cantera Seeds Cup. Sorry, North Battleford. We have it now. We're the champions now.
But their names are on it.
Yes. But we need to kind of go back a little bit. And now we need to focus on those last 4 teams that we didn't get to before we talked to commission. Again, thank you to Kyle McIntyre for joining us. Always a great chat. Let's start, guys, with the Nipawin Hawks. Of course, last year was Tad Cozen's first full year at the helm for the Nipawin Hawks. And kind of similar to Weyburn, got back into the playoffs. Lost in 5 games to the Humboldt Broncos, but really a year of growth for the Nipawin Hawks. And now this year, Nugsy, it's shaping up to be a pretty good one for Nipawin.
Yeah, they certainly have a good core of returning players back in Nipawin. And one theme that I see in the whole Sherwood division is a absolute deadly, and I mean deadly, top line on all 4 of these teams. And for Nipawin, it looks like it's going to be Braxton Buckberger, Evan Forrest, whom they acquired from Estevan in the offseason, and of course Maguire Ratzlaff, who's, absolutely exploded, especially the first half of last year, and the leader of this Nipawin Hawks team. You know what? I still think the identity of this Nipawin Hawks team is bigger than the players that they have. Their identity is to play fast. They are quick. They are in your face. They skate well. If you can't skate well, it's hard to play for Tad Cozen. And, they're going to have to overcome some losses on the back end. Obviously, Xander Stewart, Trey Fouquet, not likely to come back from the Brandon Wheat Kings, I don't believe either. So, it's going to be a big moment, a role for Ronan Buckberger, the Ohio State Division I NCAA commit on the back end to fill some of that. We saw that from Cole Fox. We saw Vito Biondo have good moments too for Nipawin. They're going to score goals. Can they keep them out? That'll be the question. That was part of the question last year too. But it's going to be fun to watch. They're going to be electric. They're always a hard team to play against, Rory, because they can skate so well.
Yeah, the Nipawin Hawks are ready to rock, yeah. I think. Not that they had training wheels last year, but the training wheels are off this year. I mean, they made the playoffs last year. Yeah. But I love this team. I love their returning players. You'd think Maguire Ratzlaff was a 20-year-old last season, right? He led the league for the first month and a half in goals. Yes. He was only 19 doing that. You got great speed coming back. Finley Radloff, Joel Mabin, Braxton Buckberger, a few new members coming in like Deegan Wapas, who could have a great rookie season if he's there the whole time. Hudson Cameron, you mentioned on the point, Ronan Buchberger is going to open some eyes this year. He came in the playoffs last year against the Humboldt Broncos and was their best defenseman. That's with Sanders Stewart in the lineup. He was their best defenseman as a 16-year-old in the playoffs against the Humboldt Broncos. And you said they're going to have to find a way to stop some pucks. Love Damon Cunningham. I think this guy can step up and be a top 3 netminder in the league in the first full year. I'm predicting a home ice playoff series in Nipawin's favor. They're going to finish top 4 in the SJHL. I love the Nipawin Hawks.
There's a bold prediction. Love it. Yeah, and nobody wants to go to the cage for a big game. Absolutely nobody. The guy that Dana Dirks, the assistant GM, was excited the most about when I talked to him. He's excited about his roster. He loves it. He loves his players. He loves his job. He's a great guy, Dana Dirks. He was fired right up about Mason Karakocek, former 2nd overall pick in the SJHL draft. I love to see teams build through the draft. Keeps that apparatus very important. And so Karakocek was awesome for the Moose Jaw Warriors at their camp. They loved him too. And Dana Dirks expects him to be in the question for Rookie of the Year. Obviously, it's really early to talk about things like that, but Mason Karakocek in 06 birth year, he destroyed the U18 AA loop as a young kid a couple of years ago with the Saskatoon River Kings. Had a great year in AAA as well last year. So, Nipawin, again, lots and lots and lots of talented forwards. Great goaltending in Damon Cunningham. Big shoes to fill in the back end. That's my only question mark.
Well, Nugsy, we heard Rory's prediction. So what's your prediction for the Nipawin Hawks? You don't have to be as bold, Nugsy.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's my prediction for the whole league is I think there's Flin Flon and Estevan and maybe Humboldt in behind, and then there's just sort of a big kind of mishmash. So Nipawin's going to be right in that mishmash for a playoff spot. I'd be stunned out of my mind if they aren't somewhere between 4 and 8.
There you go. All right, let's move on to the L'Orange Ice Wolves, a team that, it was an interesting year for L'Orange last year because there were at times where L'Orange was in 2nd place in the SJHL standings because of games in hand, but a team that's only lost a handful of 20-year-olds, and they have a good amount of returning players this year, and it looks like Kevin Kaminsky and his staff, their team might be ready to take that next step potentially.
Yeah, Dawson Smith is a big loss.
Yes.
In that, right? I mean, that was one of the best goaltenders in the league. Topher Chirico, though, was a wonderful 1B in L'Orange. So, he looks to take the next step. If I'm pumping, Kindersley and I'm pumping Nipawin, right? A few teams pumping Yorkton that weren't into the playoffs. Unfortunately, some are going to have to fall out.
Sure.
I've done this the last 3 years. I've said L'Orange is going to fall out of the playoffs. But Kevin Kaminsky and Kyle Schneider just don't ice teams that aren't going to be in your face and competitive.
Yeah.
So am I going to do it again this year? Yes, I am. I'm going to say there might be a step back this year for the L'Orange Ice Wolves just because of the losses up front. The loss to Dawson Smith is just so big. But if I'm proven wrong for the 4th straight year, it'll be the last time I do it because Kevin Kaminsky and Kyle Schneider they get the most out of the players that they have. You may look at it preseason like they don't have the most talented roster, but those two coaches get the most out of their guys. So that's all I could say about them.
I am going to very strongly disagree with you about this L'Orange Ice Wolves team. You said Nipawin was a home ice advantage team. I think L'Orange is a home ice advantage team. Topher Chirico is a 1A, absolutely. The kid they brought in, Karl Sonef, this Danish kid, he is legit as well. L'Orange had a 1A, 1B that was maybe unmatched last year. I thought Dawson Smith was the best goalie in the Saskatchewan Junior Hockey League last year, so that made them 1A, 1B, the best in the league, again, in my opinion. They're going to be right there again with Topher Chirico and Karl Sonef. The time is now for Mason Buchert and Jacob Kazette. They were young kids last year. They were trying to figure it out. We talked about the big line in the Sherwood division. It's going to be great seeing those teams match up. Whoever the centerman between Buchert and Kazette is going to be very interesting. They still have Dylan Handel. They still have Cale Taylor. They have Parker Layton and maybe the best defenseman in the league, by the way, and Liam McInnes, maybe on the back end. That kid was over a point per game when he was healthy for the L'Orange Ice Wolves. They have a lot back. They have a culture that's set. Clearly you said it there. Kaminsky gets not just the best, he gets more than the best out of his guys. They play so hard for him, especially at the mill. And I love the L'Orange Wolves this year. I really do.
The one reason why I'm just a little worried about it also is look at the Sherwood division.
Yeah.
If you're loving Flin Flon, you're loving Nipawin and Melfort as well. Those are the teams you got to play them 24 times out of 56 games, right? Like it's really tough division. So if they aren't quite up to the level of the other three, then they're going to lose more of those games than they win, in which case it's going to hurt their standings impact.
Carl Sonneff has played pro hockey. He has played 2 games in the Danish men's league. Like
that's pretty cool.
He's good.
That is pretty cool. That is pretty cool.
He's played for Herlev in the league. He is a dual citizen. Nobody get angry. I'm not trying to out anybody. He's a Canadian-Danish dual citizen. He's fine. My point is they're going to be much better than people think.
And I also just want to add, we saw all 4 teams in the Sherwood division make the playoffs last year.
Yeah.
There's no reason why.
It might happen again.
It might happen again this year when you look at
paper.
these 4 teams.
On paper, it should.
Yeah.
There you go. Let's move on to the team the L'Orange Wolves played in the first round of the playoffs this past year. The Melfort Mustangs losing in the second round to the Battlefords North Stars. I think going into the offseason, I think there was a lot of question marks. But then come the beginning of August, boy, oh boy, did Trevor Blevins and company get some great news with Zach Summers and James Venn coming back. And now I think we can look at the Melfort Mustangs a little bit differently going into this season.
Go ahead,
Yeah. Well, first of all, Trevor Blevins will always tell it how it is. You call him on the phone. I talked to him this morning on the phone. If he's happy, you know, and if he's not happy, you know. And that's something I told him that I love about him. But Trevor Blevins is happy. Like, he was happy with his camp. He was happy with their compete. We talked about the Sherwood division being the division of the big line. Ryan Duguay, Aiden Hutchinson, and Zach Summers should be as good a line as there is in the SJHL as well. And we were joking about them facing the big Flin Flon line, which we'll get to in a second. And he said, I don't know if there's going to be enough pucks on the ice for all 6 of those guys, because they're all going to be have the puck all the time. But, again, Melfort, it's a tough place to go to the Northern Lights Palace. They lost a lot of leadership in Ben Tkachuk and all those monsters on the back end. You think about Halayan, you think about Minnock being gone. That's tough too. They have a lot of shoes to fill. Trevor Blevins, I think, will be a lot more active this year, making some moves probably. But, if there's a team that is going to take a step back, my prediction actually would be Melfort, just based on the roster that we have right now.
I'm looking at their blue line. You mentioned the guys that they lost, which is hard to replicate for any team. Chase Frietmore coming in.
Yes.
If you're looking at a guy who has the potential to lead the league in defensive scoring, it is this guy right here. He is an absolute cannon and will probably play. We'll say if there's 8 minutes of power play, Chase Frietmore is going to play 6.5 of them on every game. And they are just going to tee him up with one-timers and use it as a decoy to set up backdoor attacks. Leith Olofsson and Chase Frietmore, right now, they might be one of the best pairings in the SJHL. You have those two in front of James Venn, who has the chance to be one of the best goaltenders in the SJHL. And then, they're just going to need to find a little bit of that heart that they lost with Ben Tkachuk, lost with Dawson LaRue. I'm sure they have it. They have the skill with Zach Summers. Of course, they lost Riley Ash to the BCHL. I find that the Melfort Mustangs, how we were talking about them last year being, like 1 week they would win 6 in a row, but then they would lose 4 in a row. If it happens again, it wouldn't surprise me. But again, they're in the Sherwood division. I think they're one of the top 6 teams in the league. And with that top pairing, a couple of great strikers, they just need to kind of find out that Trevor Blevins systematic play it more consistently.
Right.
And then they're going to be great.
Well, you talked about, that kind of the grit, that heart, the tenacity that we are used to from important Melfort Mustang players. One guy that was really sticking out to Blevins was Matthew Pigeon, the recruited player out of Quebec. He's not a big guy, but he plays bigger, and he fits that system. He plays with guts. I said, is he like kind of a Seth McCullough? If you remember Seth McCullough, mucking it up, little guy, just get in your face, score some goals here and there. He said Pigeon's a better player, talent-wise than McCullough. Same kind of grit and speed and effort, though. And again, Trevor Blevins will add, and I'm only making my assumptions based on the roster as it sits right now. I think Melfort will look different, in a couple of months.
I got a quick. I'm interested to see how they look out of the gates.
Yeah.
Because Zach Summers, Ryan Duguay, Aiden Hutchinson, James Venn, they haven't played a preseason game.
Yeah.
So those are their
right.
4 big guns, and they're going to go into the regular season not having played any preseason, any camp, right? So just interested to see if it's a little bit of a slower going before they really find their footing in Melfort.
Yeah. Interesting. backup goaltender matchup. Blevin said as well, Josh Martin and Christian Coombs, they still don't know who the backup is going to be to James Venn. Don't know how many games they'll play anyways because James Venn is there, because James Venn has sat very patiently alongside Joel Favreau over these years. It's his term. It's his time to shine. He's come back, as you said. So, again, they'll be good in net. It'll be very interesting to see what happens moving forward.
All right, finally, last but definitely, certainly not least, the Flin Flon Bombers, who, of course, fell in the SJHL final last year to the Battlefords North Stars. But as we all know, with the Flin Flon Bombers, it's not rebuild, it's reload. And they are going to be another top team in the Saskatchewan Junior Hockey League this year. And Kyle kind of teased it when we talked to him. They might have one of the best lines, if not the best line in the Saskatchewan Junior Hockey League this year.
Yeah, I think me and Nuju would both agree with that, with Alexei Silvestri and Justin Lees on the wings, with Jacob Vockler in the center slot. It's going to be tough to slow down that line. It's going to be tough to slow down their power play. It's going to be tough to beat them at home. Harmon Laser-Hume is back. They got a great decor. When I was talking with Estevan, the third team we did in this season preview show, I said there's one other team in the upper echelon, I think, and it's the Flin Flon Bombers. Yeah. I think they're in a group of themselves right now. As you mentioned, Humboldt isn't too far behind. Then I like, the Battlefords and everyone kind of shuffle and just in behind that. But Flin Flon, I just look at this lineup, even some role players they're bringing back. Brock Mueller, Liam Bridger, Matt Egan, Kylan Olofsson, just guys who skate, who hit. Cohen Senft might be a rookie of the year favorite, or definitely a candidate. Flin Flon, it's been a long time since they've won a championship. I haven't liked their roster looking better than it is right now going into the season, and we know that there's going to be some more faces probably coming in throughout it.
Yeah, 2 straight finals appearances for Flin Flon, though, Mike Reagan didn't like losing, obviously, who does, in the finals last year, but he just kind of tipped his cap to Battlefords because they were such a juggernaut. But I agree completely. That line combined for 17 points
in the preseason.
3 preseason games. 17 points in 3 preseason games. I know it's preseason. What does that mean? I don't know. That's pretty good. Pretty good. Also nice for the Lees family to have both brothers, Joey and Justin Lees, both now together. The younger one, the 05, has been here for a while. The older one, Justin, 203 Western Hockey League games, but again, a local to Flin Flon. So it's nice to see those guys come back. The one question mark, if it's not really a question mark, because I do still love the guys. Talk about Noah Hull, talk about Cole Tanchuk. List goes on that back end. The only question mark is how will they fill in the rest of that back end. Sure. They lost Reese Richmond, they lost Corey King, they lost Alex Von Sprecken, they lost Lucas Fry, they lost Ryland Pierce. That's a lot of people.
It is a lot.
Yep. But Noah Hull is going to dominate, I believe. He started dominating last year, especially later. And Cole Tanchuk feels like he's been around in the SJ since the turn of the millennium. So, and he's still only an 04.
Yeah, it's crazy.
Which is wild. But they're very excited about Luke Lepper, a guy that was very talented as a defenseman in the Manitoba U18 League, was over a point per game as a defenseman there last year. And they got 2 young kids, Cohen Senft. We actually saw him in the playoffs with that crazy injury situation that the Bombers had last year. Cohen Senft stepped in out of the Pat season, was awesome. And Trevor Stenglein, who they acquired his rights from Sherwood Park in the AJ, but he dominated in Michigan high school hockey for Victory Honda last year as well. So those 2 guys, names to know. And I was very excited. Anthony Piccinino, try to get his name right, from my beloved old North York Rangers in the Ontario Junior Hockey League, where I used to be. And again, I mean no disrespect, I love that organization, means a lot to me. But I was joking with Mike Reagan when they acquired Anthony. I said he went from a team that has almost no fans in North York to maybe the team that has the most fans in the SJ and maybe even junior A hockey in Canada, and the Flin Flon Bombers. So pretty good upgrade from him. That Flin Flon team is so deep. They're so good. They're going to be tough to beat from start to finish.
So I'm assuming, based off how you guys answered that question, your prediction for the Sherwood division this year?
I think yes. I will predict Flin Flon.
I'll let you say it. I'm not going to say it.
It's going to be closer because of how much. Obviously, the divisional games are going to be dogfights between all these 4 teams, and it is going to run down players. I don't mean injuries. It's just going to take a lot to win a game in the Sherwood division. Yep. So I think it's going to be a lot closer between all 4 teams, but I will say Flin Flon does grab the division title, yes. Close, though.
Yeah, word for word what he just said.
All right, there you go. Those are your 12-team preview for the Saskatchewan Junior Hockey League this year. It is. We've talked about parity. The parity in the SJHL is always much higher than it seems like a lot of other junior leagues. And this year, it definitely seems like it's going to be no different. Now, moving on, we have to move to another popular segment. We saw Rory's Rapid Fire, but returning as we see him shuffling his papers. And good news, the one that fell on the ground is picked back up. It's Nugs and Notes. Nugsy, take it away.
There you go. Yeah. So just real quickly, the name of the Central Division, Notre Dame, Humboldt, Battlefords, and Kindersley was called the Global Agri-Risk Solutions Division. It's now called the Nutrien Division. I went ahead and tried to figure out what Nutrien was, and it's a potash producing company, and apparently it's the producer. It's the largest potash producing company in the world. Not just Saskatchewan, in the world, according to CBC, and it's the third largest producer of nitrogen fertilizer in the world, according to the CBC. So there we go. We got a good division name, Nutrien.
Good for
very
broadcasters
powerful,
too.
And much easier to say.
Just for
no disrespect again to anybody than the previous. Yeah, as I mentioned with the Kyle McIntyre, the commissioner, 05 birth years and younger must wear visors or cages this year. So don't be surprised if you see that, wondering why. There it is. And then the last point in Nugsy's News and Notes. We're going to have 8 neutral site games this year. I love them. They're a lot of fun. The communities come out. It's going to be bumping. 5 of them involve Notre Dame, where they're the home team. Carlisle, Kamsack, Kinestino, Lumsden, Radville, Assiniboia, and they're gorgeous.
Right.
Gorgeous rink down there in Assiniboia. Can't wait. January 16th, Notre Dame and Weyburn there, and Assiniboia is going to be fun. Rosetown is going to host a Kindersley Clippers game, which I think is awesome, and Mydale also. So neutral site games, I don't mean not including the showcase, but Notre Dame will only have 22 of their 28 games that are home games at the Duncan McNeil Arena this year, but there you have it.
Quick question, Nugsy, I guess for you, for your 5 neutral site games. How many of the 5 are you going to have to call from the penalty box?
I had fun in Radville, man. Let me tell you. Hey, if they'll take me in the penalty box, I'll call all of them from the penalty box.
I love Nugsy's News and Notes. If I'm going to be getting some, information and facts like what Nutrien is, and every week,
Nugsy's a smart guy.
You learn something.
I work hard for the folks. I want to keep the people edutained.
It's informal as well.
Yes. I feel smarter. I feel smarter right now.
Perfect.
That's of course Nugs and Notes, and also looking for a sponsor for the segment. So if you want to be a sponsor of Nugsy's segment, reach out to Director of Marketing Jacob Vade. Before we wrap up the show, of course we've gone a little long today. We're going into overtime, but that's because it's a season preview show, so it's kind of expected. We do want to make some other predictions. We predicted the divisions. Let's predict some final season awards. We did it last year. I should have went back and looked to see if any of us were actually right, but let's go through it. And let's start with SJHL leading scorer. Rory, we want to start with this one. Who do you think is going to?
I'm going to take a part of the top line for Flin Flon because, as Nugsy said, 17 points in 3 preseason games combined. So I think I'm fair to pick one of them off that line.
Which one?
And Flin Flon always seems to have at least a guy like in the top 5. And then if you go back over the course of the last 5 or 6 seasons, 80% of the time, the leading scorer has been someone with major junior experience, whether it be Kean Bell, Chance Petruick, the list goes on. So I'm going to take Justin Lees. I'm going to take a guy who I think is going to play a lot of power play time. He's on what I consider the best line going into the SJHL regular season puck drop. I'm going to take Justin Lees right now. Way too early prediction, but I'll take him.
Fair enough. I'm going to go in the same direction because Jacob Vockler has watched Jaden Mercier, Cole Dupereau, etc., kind of run the show there in Flin Flon. He was a big part of it for sure the last couple of years. But this is Jacob Vockler's year. He's going to be the top line centerman. He's going to get all the opportunity in the world from Mike Reagan on a great team. Best line to start the year. I'm going to go with Mr. Jacob Vockler.
I think both of those are great picks. Moving on. Top defenseman, and I think we've mentioned throughout doing these reviewing all 12 teams, I mean, we've listed off a good amount of great defensemen. Just like last year, there were so many good defensemen in the SJHL. I think this year is going to be no different. Nugsy, you want to start with this one?
Yeah, I'm going to go up to the fine folks in L'Orange, and Liam McInnes, huge fan of his since his Regina Pat C's days. Whenever he's been healthy for L'Orange, he has been a machine. He plays well in his own end, and L'Orange puts up a lot of points. These awards are often kind of points-based, and Liam McInnes is phenomenal. But a quick caveat, my favorite defenseman just overall in the league this year, who probably is going to be the new Jared Sitch, is Leith Olofsson. Big fan of his, so it could be either I'm going to go with McInnes and Olofsson.
I'm going to take Dalen Weigel, 20-year-old Humboldt Bronco defenseman. If you look from last year, the D-men in the top 12 scores, the only one that's still in the league is Dalen Weigel, either graduating or leaving, such as a Jared Six to Mercyhurst there. But I think with the personnel around him, with his ability to take over a game from the blue line, 42 points in 53 games last year, he's going to be right around a point per game, maybe even just over. That 56 and 55 of Tynan Ewert looks like what Dalen can accomplish. And I think right now, just with, not as many returning like him, it'll take a Felix Allard. It'll take a really big jump from Aaliyah McInnes, who will have to play the full season to be right there. Aleth Olafson to knock him off. I think he's the front runner in my opinion. So I'm going to stick with Dalen Weigel.
All right, let's move on. I think this next one's going to be a tough one to predict, and that's top goaltender. There's a lot of good returning goaltenders this year in the Saskatchewan Junior Hockey League. I think we looked at it during the offseason. There's only one overage graduating goaltender from last year. Of course, Josh Cote and Dawson Smith left to go to university for their NCAA Division I scholarship. But there's a lot of great returning goaltenders.
I'm going to say my front runner is Cam Hrdlicka. We talked about the division in the Sherwood. Cam Hrdlicka just seems to have the Viterra division's number. If that adds an extra 12 wins to his category in, however many games he starts in the division rivals, it's going to help, right, against who he's playing with. I think his numbers are going to be great this year. He's one of the best. He's now a 20-year-old. So Cam Hrdlicka is going to be my pick. Keep an eye out, though, for Damon Cunningham in Nipawin as a very sneaky dark horse goaltender to watch this year. Came in last year, wasn't really sure what was happening with Jackson Fellner, Cunningham. Same with the first two games that the Humboldt Broncos played in Nipawin against Fellner. They ended up going to Cunningham for the last ones. He won the game against the Broncos in the playoffs and then was really tough to beat in games 4 and 5 as well. So I like Hrdlicka, but sneaky picks Cunningham.
Yeah, I can't argue with Cam Hrdlicka as my pick. For all the reasons you just said, heavy decor in front of him too. Boy, oh boy, is that Estevan team going to be hard to play against. But my sneaky pick is their rival right down the road, Daza Mitchell. He looked incredible this preseason. He was awesome against Notre Dame. He was awesome, shut out Estevan at Affinity Place. If you want to get free stuff in Weyburn, shut out Estevan at Affinity Place. Daza Mitchell, I'm sure, gets some free stuff in Weyburn. So I've got to pick Cam Hrdlicka. Can't go against that, but my sneaky pick, like you said with Cunningham, is Daza.
I think if you like a goaltending matchup, that Highway 39 rivalry this year is going to be
sweet.
A lot of 1-0, 2-1 games because both those goaltenders are outstanding. Here's a tricky one. Nugsy kind of alluded to it earlier, but top rookie, very difficult to predict,
especially going into the season. Do
you guys have some front runners?
I do. You can go ahead though. You can go first.
There's a lot of young kids I like, but I'm gonna go with Connor Miller. I actually wrote about it in my column late last year that he was my way too early pick for Rookie of the Year this year. The D1, I gotta stick with my guns. D1 Augustana pick, Humboldt Broncos. Scott Barney trusts young kids, gives them opportunity. Connor Miller is gonna have top 6 opportunities as long as he deserves it, and I believe so far he's deserved it. He led the Broncos in scoring in the preseason. He played playoff games last year. Not too many rookies, I don't think, this year, other than Cohen Senft. I'm sure I'll think of other ones, but those were two of the guys that were had playoff games last year. I'm just stick with Connor Miller because I've loved him for years.
It is funny you say that because there is definitely one more that had playoff experience last year, and it's my pick, and it's Ronan Buchberger of the Nipawin Hawks. 4 points in 3 playoff games last season. The Ohio State University NCAA Division I commit. I think he's going to be their top D-man. He's going to get 28 minutes a game, power play time. It's been a while since a D-man has won Rookie of the Year. I can't remember when the last time it's been a D-man or a goalie take-home rookie, but I think that trend's about to change as I'm going to go with Ronan Buchberger of the Nipawin Hawks.
I like that pick. Okay, final question. And you just have to say a number. You don't have to say the teams. But this is my favorite question that we asked last year, and then we'll ask it again this year. How many teams who missed the playoffs in the 2022-2023 SJHL season will make the playoffs this year?
I'll even say the teams if you want.
You say whatever your heart desires.
I have 2.
All right.
I have 2 teams going in, 2 teams coming out. Yeah.
Okay. Would you like to say the 2 teams going in?
I will. Yeah. Okay. That's fine. I mean, I'm going to be wrong probably, but if I'm right, I need to at least make a prediction now so we can go back to it.
Fair enough.
I have Kindersley and Yorkton going in. I have Larange and Weyburn falling out.
There you go.
Other ones stay the same.
Nugsy, just one?
One.
Would you like to say who you think the one is, or?
I would not.
Pleading the fifth.
All right, fair enough. That's why I like to leave that question open-ended. But that's a very tough thing to predict.
Just extra motivation to prove me wrong.
Exactly. Just prove Rory wrong.
I like Kindersley a lot. I think Kindersley is going to come in and displace somebody.
There you go.
There you go. We got it out of Nugsy. Yeah. There you go. Regardless, we are all very excited for the start of the SJHL season, which begins this Friday. Let's pop up the opening night of action on your screen right now. And some great matchups. Flin Flon visiting Nipawin, Yorkton and Weyburn, Estevan, Melville, Orange, Melfort, Kindersley, and Battlefords. And unfortunately for Nugsy and Rory, they got to wait one more day.
24 hours.
Before they get to call their first game of the year. Because then you go on to Saturday, and it's a super Saturday in the SJHL. All 12 teams in action. Melfort, Flin Flon, Estevan, Melville, Weyburn, Yorkton, Notre Dame, Humboldt, Nipawin, Larange, Balford, Kindersley. And of course, we didn't have a graphic for Sunday, but that's because it's just Humboldt and Notre Dame. So the guys didn't make a full graphic for that.
I do like Sundays in the dunk, right?
Sundays in the dunk are underrated,
6
right,
p.m.
Nipsey?
Sunday at the dunk. Is it going to be a kids' school game? Are they getting them all out for the home opener?
I hope so.
Yeah, that'd be good. Those are usually fun.
There you go. Your guys' final thoughts before we wrap up the first episode of SJHL Weekly, Nugsy. I'll let you go first.
I'm so excited to see these 06s, these 07s. Teams have drafted so well the last number of years. I think a big part of that is because they've done a great job, but also because the move to older drafting. And so we're going to see some great 06s, great 07s jump in, be called up, make impacts, maybe even stick like Matthew Van Blericom did last year. I'm so excited to see these young guys pick the SJ and stick around. So let's get it going. I can't wait.
Yeah, coming into preseason, I was so excited to have hockey back.
Yeah.
By the 5th preseason game, I was like, all right, let's get to ones that count now, right? And now we're finally there.
Let's get down to business.
I'm ready. Regular season action this Friday. Get your Flow Hockey subscriptions. Get your tickets, your season tickets. Support your local team, or watch when you can, because it's a great league and it's only going to get better this year. So I'm just excited. Another 56 games to wait.
And that's a great segue to move into a reminder to everybody when it comes to following the Saskatchewan Junior Hockey League this year. Make sure to like us on Facebook. Also, follow us on X. I wanted to dive into that, to be honest with you. That's how long it's been since we had a show. Yeah. Twitter's not a thing anymore. It's X. So follow us on X and Instagram and TikTok, and get that Flow Hockey subscription. Of course, it was all SJHL hockey was on Hockey TV last year. Now it's on Flow Hockey. Get your subscription today so you can watch your favorite team across the Saskatchewan Junior Hockey League. And like Rory said, support your local team. Go out to the games. Get season tickets. Get your flex packs, your single tickets. Buy 50-50. You name it. It's going to be a great year of hockey across the Saskatchewan Junior Hockey League. And we're going to be here for the ride every single Monday at 1 o'clock. But before we go, we have to give a big shout out to our sponsors, as always, because without our sponsors, these shows would not be possible. And of course, first and foremost, a big thank you to UPL, our new presenting sponsor for SJHL Weekly and SJHL Insider this year. So a big shout out to UPL, but all of our other great sponsors: Bourgault, Cantera Seeds, Capital Auto Mall, Great Western, Nutrien, RBC, Saskatchewan Construction Safety Association, Saskatchewan Lotteries, Tourism Saskatchewan, UPL, of course, Sask Energy, SGU, SGI, you name it. Thank you all for your support, because without your support, this show would not be possible. We are 4 days away from puck drop across the Saskatchewan Junior Hockey League. Get your Flow Hockey subscription today. Get your tickets for home openers across the SJHL, and we will see you next Monday. This has been SJHL Weekly across the SJHL social media platforms.